over, say your rifle, that makes a big hole. Goes in one end and goes out the other, so you have an entrance wound and an exit wound, okay? Make a big hole and can kill you, right? But let's say you have a 22, much smaller round, much less energy, that tends to bounce around a lot, so that can also cause a lot of damage, okay? But you're probably going to have smaller holes and maybe not even an exit wound, right? Luckily, we don't see too many of the larger rounds from rifles in civilian EMS, although you can, depending on, the incident. But what do we see a lot of? 9mm, 38s, 22s, right? A lot of handguns. That's what we mostly see in our urban areas. Sometimes we'll see shotgun wounds, especially if people are out hunting and they shoot somebody by accident. Dick Cheney. In Unionville years ago. But it happens every year, right? During hunting season, somebody shoots somebody else besides the deer. Okay? So what happens with a shotgun? What's in those shotgun rounds? Little pellets, right? So is it a 12 gauge? Is it a 20 gauge? How far away are they? That's going to depend on how deep those little rounds are going to penetrate the body, right? Because if you're closer, then you're going to have it all over, right? And you can go deep. If you're farther away, then maybe they're just buried in the skin and didn't go too far. Okay, so it's going to depend. All right, so blunt trauma, it depends on the velocity of impact, the direction of impact, if there's safety equipment, part of the body, the vehicle crashes, what kind of vehicle are they in, and did they stay in said vehicle? Okay. Like I said, ejection is bad. All right, here you have your bullets. So you have a temporary cavity and a permanent cavity. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, the temporary cavity is bigger, and then the permanent cavity is smaller. But if you have an entrance wound, you got to look for the exit wound, especially if it's in the chest, because what kind of dressing do we put on that? Occlusive, right? So if you only put an occlusive dressing on one side and there's another hole, then you're not really doing much, right? So you got to remember to look for the other holes, okay? You can ask somebody how many shots they heard, but are they going to be reliable? Maybe not, okay? So make sure you look everywhere, all right? Because you never know where they might hide. Right? I had one of my paramedic preceptors had a call in Stanford, and the guy swore he heard 2 shots, and she found one entrance and exit wound. She found another entrance wound, could not find the other exit wound. The bullet was between the ass cheeks. She did not look there. They found it in the ED. So you just never know. All right, so there's a couple of areas of weakness, so to speak, that we have, that when great forces are acted upon us, things rip. So the aortic arch at the ligamentum arteriosum, so that's the ligament I was talking about. So if great forces are acted upon on your chest, and you're in that car going 60 and you hit something, that might, the ligament will hold and rip your aorta. Okay. Depending on the size of said rip, depends on how fast you're going to bleed out. Can you survive that? Yes, if it's a very small tear. Okay. But if it's a big one, you're not going to. Okay. Also, kidneys at the renal artery. That's another place that shears. All right. Then there's compression. So notice where that seatbelt is. Is that where it's supposed to be? No, it's supposed to be around your hips, not your abdomen. Okay? So when you are stopped by the seatbelt, if you compress everything, well, it's going to bleed, most likely, and maybe rupture. Okay? You don't really want to rupture your intestines or your bladder. Bad. Okay? Who tends to wear seatbelts? A lot of people wear them wrong, but people that are pregnant a lot of times will wear them wrong. Okay? It's not. All right, so here we go, car into a pole, unbelted driver, right? What are we looking for inside the car?
Intrusion, airbag deployment,
Intrusion.
spider webbing,
What are we looking at the steering wheel?
deformity.
Is it deformed, right? What about the windshield? Right, is it spidered, right? If it is, well, they probably have a head injury or a neck injury, right? And there's usually a pretty, pattern on the inside of the windshield where their head hit. If they weren't wearing a seatbelt, they may have gone through the windshield or get thrown out the side, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So this is obviously car into a pole. So we've got front end collisions, we've got head on collisions, we've got rear ends. What kind of injuries do you expect when somebody gets rear ended?
Flash.
Whiplash, right? Back injuries, that kind of stuff. And it doesn't take a whole lot of force to cause an injury, right? And people may not feel it right away. What about T-bones?
Side injuries, ribs, neck.
Anything on the side that you get hit, right? What about your neck?
Lateral
If
whiplash.
most cars now have side impact airbags, but seatbelts are designed to keep you from going forward, right? And keep you in your seat for forward and back, not side to side, right? So if you have somebody next to you, you can crash into them, okay? Or you get hit and you go to the left. So sometimes if there's not an airbag there, that's how people end up with broken necks, right? Airbags have made that better because they catch you and tend to not let your head go so far and not break your neck, okay? But there still can be injury there, okay? Then you can have the injuries or the accidents where you spin around, right?
Rotational.
Rotational. So you can have injuries from several different, or you could be hit more than once, right? You get hit once, you start spinning, and then get hit again. So it's a fair game for whatever injuries they may have. And then we have rollovers. My experience with rollovers is either they're really messed up or they're perfectly fine, right? Does anybody experience anything in between? I mean, it seems like either they're really messed up or they're wanting an RMA. Yeah, if it's after midnight, they're probably drunk. All right, so we've kind of talked about this. So your pathways of an improperly restrained or unrestrained driver, they're either going to go up and over or down and under. So down and under, they're going to have injuries to their lower limbs, right? And depending on where the steering wheel hits them, they could have anything up here. Up and over, head, chest, and also femur. Just everything I just said. Okay. There we go. Oh, face into the steering wheel. That's fun. Okay. All right. Rear impact. It's important, obviously, to have your headrests in the proper place, because if not, it's not going to catch your head and you can have a neck injury. Okay? So adjusting the headrest to where it's supposed to be is kind of important. Okay? Now, you can get hit from behind and then hit the car in front of you too. Right? But I will tell you that getting hit from behind at only like 10 miles an hour does hurt. Hurts your lower back. All right, we have our lateral. Talked about that. Rotational, rollovers. Right. So, what do you think about where that seatbelt is? On the second picture.
It's on her neck.
It's around her neck and over her abdomen. So she crashes, things are not going to go well for her. She may not be injured if it's in the right place, but she's going to just have injuries from the seatbelt and that. So, now a lot of the cars have adjustable seatbelts, which is good because, basically they built everything for, an average sized man, and, women, sometimes we're shorter, okay? So we need to be able to adjust the seatbelt so it's not around their neck. Alright. Ooh. Anything about that? Is that gonna go well for that person?
They can't park there.
I'll be fine.
Yeah. So this is a crash dummy, luckily. So in motorcycle crashes, they hit something, they're gonna go over the handlebars. They're gonna have bilateral femur fractures when your femurs hit the handlebars. Okay. Maybe some pelvic fractures. And then you got a secondary impact when they hit the ground. Right? So they hit whatever, the motorcycle. This one's hitting their head on the car, and then they're up and over. So they're not having a good day. You can get crushed between the ground and the motorcycle. You can have pretty gnarly looking injuries. Lots of road rash, stuff like that, but you have to remember to focus on the ABCs, because that is what's going to kill them. Okay? Okay.
I didn't.
I think you did. Let me see what's left. Okay. Pedestrians. Okay. So, some of these injuries are very ugly. Okay, do not get focused on the ugliness. Get focused on what's going to kill them, and fix that as best you can. Okay. All right. Laying the bike down. If they're not separated from it, that's better, because they're probably not going as fast. But they can have, if they're not wearing the proper gear, they're going to have pretty severe road rash, which hurts a lot. Okay, but it's not going to necessarily kill them. It might from infection weeks later, but for the most part, just make sure nothing in their ABCs is messed up. All right, so pedestrians. People, adults, tend to turn away when a car is coming at them because they know it's coming. Okay, kids tend to turn towards the car. Now, there's a lot of trucks and SUVs. So, shorter adults and kids, what kind of injuries do you think they have?
Head, chest.
Head and chest, right? Because of where they're going to get hit. They can go up and hit the windshield and then get thrown and hit the ground. So you've got numerous impacts there. So you can have numerous injuries. All right, and here you got your kids, gets hit in the front, goes up, whacks their head, and then boom, down on the ground. Okay. That is called something called Waddell's triad. You might want to write that down for kids. Yeah, there is a lot of triads.
How does one spell that?
Waddell. Waddell. Yes, it's on your review sheet. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Imagine that. So you can kind of predict what kind of injuries these kids are going to have, right?
How do we define Waddell's triad?
So there's like 3 impacts. So basically, here, here, and here. So hits the car, goes up on the hood, hits the ground. That makes up the 3.
If we put like chest, head, ground.
That works for you. All right. Falls. Obviously, the higher you fall from, the worse it is. But it's also going to depend on what you fall on. Falling on concrete and marble, probably not good. Okay. But if you fall in the mud is going to absorb some of that energy. Okay. But if you fall from 10 stories up, is it going to matter much? Probably not, because you're going to be dead no matter what. Okay. Also depends on how you land. Are you landing on your feet, or are you landing on your head? Okay. Or on your back. So it just depends. In the fall, what do we get? People falling off ladders because they're trying to clean out their gutters to get the leaves out, right? So that happens regularly. If they just fall from, tripping or whatever, put your arms out, right? So you get fractures, wrist to clavicle and shoulders. Shoulder dislocations are probably some of the most painful injuries.
Mhm.
I've had a number of patients with that, and always have to give them pain meds sometimes before I can even move them. All right, again, it depends on what they fall on. If they fall on the lawn versus the sidewalk as to how bad. Now, if it's, a 40-year-old falling, they may not have as many fractures as an 80-year-old because an 80-year-old's bones are more brittle. And even falls that you would not think would cause a fracture can cause fractures in people that have multiple comorbidities. Okay, so I had a guy once at Chelsea Ridge. He was large. He was probably 350 pounds. He fell into like the corner of the wall and was complaining of severe pain in his scapula. He fractured it because he was larger, and the amount of force when he fell back into that corner was enough to cause him to fracture his scapula.
That's a hard one to fracture.
Mhm.
So, all right. So, head trauma, skull fractures, obviously bad because bones can go into shards which penetrate the brain. Anything that goes into the brain that's not supposed to be there is bad. Okay, it's going to cause bleeding. Right? It's going to cause swelling. If you think of your head as a bowl of jelly, right, your brain, what happens when you move the bowl of jelly back and forth? It wiggles, right? And if it hits the side of the bowl, it's going to cause damage. So that's basically what happens in your brain when it goes forward and abruptly stops. The brain keeps going, just like your organs in your chest and your abdomen, okay? And it's going to hit on the inside of the skull and cause some bruising, and then go back and cause some bruising or bleeding, because it can break some blood vessels, okay? This is worse for older people. What happens to your brain when you get older? It shrinks. So there's more room in there to move around, right? And they're more likely to bleed, especially if they're on a blood thinner. So that's why anybody that falls down and hits their head on a blood thinner goes to the hospital and is usually a level 3 trauma until proven otherwise. Okay. All right, so axial loading let's look at this person, into the windshield. So not only are they going to have head trauma, but you're compressing the spine, and the cervical spine in particular. Okay. This is going to cause swelling in their head, if not a fracture. Okay, but is also probably going to have them have some injuries, spinal injuries, compression injuries that may be temporary. Okay, but maybe they're not going to be able to feel one side of their body or both sides of their body. Okay. And then you have shear injuries from like lateral impacts, and this is a problem too. This is how people break their necks, but if their neck didn't break, it still went far to one side, they can have damage in their spinal column and in their cervical area. Okay, so that's can cause them some symptoms as well. All right, so compression injuries, steering wheel into the chest. That is bad. You can get a pulmonary contusion, a cardiac contusion, as well as your broken ribs and pneumothoraxes. Okay. And what is it called when we have 2 or more broken ribs in 2 or more places?
The chest.
The chest, right? Okay. So your compression injuries, you may get the pneumothorax, the contusions, okay? The shear injuries, the aortic transection, so that ligament holding onto the aorta and it's ripping, okay? So a traumatic aortic aneurysm, so same thing, basically. Alright, abdomen. So overpressure, so it hits something and it ruptures, okay? Like I said before, sometimes the abdominal organs get pushed up, ruptures the diaphragm, and you've got abdominal organs into your chest. Do you think you can breathe so well No, you really can't. Okay. Plus, there's bleeding, right? You can rupture a valve in your heart. How do you think that goes?
Not well.
Not well at all, right? Because valves serve a purpose. They keep blood going where they're supposed to go. If it's ruptured, what's going to happen to the blood? It's going to go back, right? Where it's not supposed to. So, they're not going to do that. All right. And then shearing injuries, it occurs as attachment fixation of organs. So anything that's attached with a ligament that gets sheared off is going to bleed. So any of those organs there, that can happen too. All right, so, all right, we kind of already talked about that. There's our bullet. So this is tumbling around. So what generally tumbles around more? The smaller rounds, right? The 22s. You know, it also depends on, people can shoot themselves in the head and survive, but it depends on what they shoot themselves in the head with and where the bullet goes. If it doesn't penetrate the skull, it might just go around, you know, go around the skull. They can shoot part of their head off and still be alive for a time. You know, things happen. Or they miss and only get part of their head. So there's multiple situations, okay? But the bullets tend to tumble and they can fragment, especially the smaller rounds. Or if they hit a bone, right, they can bounce off of it. The larger rounds, they just go straight through and kill everything in the path and come out the other side. All right, and then we talked about energy, lower energy objects like knives. But anything can be a weapon, if you think about it, right? Screwdrivers, ice picks, spoon, you know. And you can kill somebody with a fork if you know where to stab them, right? So anything can really be a weapon. But there's less secondary trauma, but it also depends on where it is. Okay? You can do a whole lot of damage with a knife. All right. Handguns, they're considered medium energy, high energy are hunting and assault rifles. All right. Let's just talk about that. All right. So yes, you can get a human pneumothorax. You can get a pericardial tamponade if it hits the outer layer of your heart. You bleed out. Esophageal perforation. Well, that would be bad. Right? May not be detected for hours or days. Well, that's why they CAT scan people pretty much on a regular basis. With like, sometimes they do what they call a pan scan, so they don't really know what injuries they have, and they just CAT scan the whole body to look for blood. Okay? Because you can't always tell where it's coming from or what other injuries they may have. Okay? Abdomen, you know, you can do a whole lot of damage with a knife. Cut open somebody's abdomen and maybe they have an evisceration and their intestines are outside of their body. Oops. Is that good for you? No, not at all. Okay. So, how do we put them back? No. What do we wrap the outside with?
Saran wrap.
Like a plastic covering to keep them warm, right? Yeah. And do your best to stop the bleeding. All right. Extremity trauma, so you can get some pretty good bleeding from being shot in an extremity, but you can also, you know, get it from blunt trauma or whatever. Depends on where it hits and what it does, right? So if it hits a vein or an artery, that's when you get the bleeding. So blast injuries. This is the last part of this. So something blows up. Right? If you're close to it, what's going to happen? What are you going to get? You're going to get hurt, yes. What organs are the most sensitive if you're close? Hollow. So lungs, ears, right? And you're probably going to get some shrapnel. from the device, whatever's in it, right? And then you're gonna get thrown, probably, right? You get injuries from that, and then stuff may fall on top of you. So you're just having a bad day overall. Okay. So these are some of the things. You can get a concussion, you can get abdominal hemorrhage, air emboli, any of the hollow organs, okay, can be injured from the blast wave, that energy. Okay. So shrapnel is secondary, so you get anything that is blown apart that's nearby. It could be parts of the bomb, it could be glass from a car, whatever.
A spoon.
Hmm?
A spoon.
A spoon. You're very focused on.
No, I had
Utensils
somebody
this
that.
evening.
No, I had somebody that got blast injury at a restaurant.
Oh.
Spoon, boop, into the eyeball.
Oh.
Mhm.
Ah.
Mhm.
No, thank you. All right. This is where you can get traumatic amputations and closed or open head injuries. So, if you all recall the Boston bombing, the people that were closest to the bomb, right? Shrapnel and lost some limbs, right? And then the tertiary is when you get thrown and you get hit, you know, go into the walls, the ground, whatever. So these are the injuries you can get from that. And you know, you have to look for all these. And then quaternary is heat in the fumes, and stuff falling on you. And the quinary is infections, or if there's anything that, if it's a dirty bomb, like radiation, chemicals, or bacteria. Stuff we don't want to think about, but we kind of have to think about sometimes, right? All right, questions about that? Nope. All right. Take 10 minutes. There's going to be new groups on the board when you come back.